They told me my little brother's app launch was more important than my spinal surgery. While I was lying in a hospital bed, terrified I might never walk again, my parents were smiling in champagne photos that I had paid for. And when I woke up from surgery, barely able to breathe from the pain, the first thing my mother asked me for was more money. I spent 29 years believing that if I loved my family hard enough, sacrificed enough, gave enough, one day they would finally choose me too. I was wrong. And the moment I realized that, everything changed. What happened next destroyed my family forever. So before we begin, I want you to do something personal. If you've ever felt invisible to the people who were supposed to love you, leave a comment with one word that describes how it felt. Just one word. I read every single one of them. And if stories about betrayal, survival, and silent revenge pull you in, subscribe to the channel and stay until the end. Because this story doesn't end the way anyone expected. I was 29 when I realized my family didn't love me, they depended on me. I worked in tech, paid my own bills, and answered every call they made at any hour. My life looked stable from the outside, but inside my home I was never the successful daughter. I was the one who made everything possible for my younger brother. Tyler was the genius. The future. The pride. I was just the wallet behind his dreams. I paid his tuition, his projects, his failures, even his celebrations. And every time I hesitated, my mother reminded me, he just needs a little more help. I believed that love meant sacrifice. Until the night my phone rang on a rain-soaked highway, and everything started to break. Tyler never had to ask twice. Whatever he wanted, my parents made sure he got it, and if he couldn't afford it, I did. Just help your brother, my mother would say, like it was my purpose in life. I paid for his college. Then his failed startup. Then his equipment. Then his lifestyle. Every investment came from me, and every success story had his name on it. At family dinners, they talked about his potential like it was a prophecy. I sat there quietly, invisible, while my bank account disappeared piece by piece. The worst part? They never even saw it as sacrifice. They saw it as my duty. It happened at a restaurant filled with laughter I didn't feel. Tyler was announcing his biggest step yet, his app launch in Chicago. Investors, branding, future deals, he talked like a man already successful. Then the bill arrived. No one moved. My mother just looked at me and said, "You know how important this is for him." So I paid. Again. $3,000 disappeared from my account while Tyler toasted his future with people who believed he built it alone. As I signed the receipt, he leaned back and smiled. "Naomi always takes care of me," he said like it was cute. That night, for the first time, I didn't feel tired. I felt used. A few days later, we were at my parents' house. Tyler was showing off his app mock-ups to relatives like he was already famous. I was in the kitchen washing dishes, like always. Then he laughed. "Honestly," he said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Naomi's basically my personal investor. She just doesn't get equity." The room laughed with him. Even my mother smiled like it was harmless. I froze with my hands in soapy water, realizing something simple but brutal. They weren't joking about me, they were comfortable with me being the joke. No one corrected him. No one defended me. And that silence said everything they never admitted out loud. I was driving home alone in the rain when my phone rang again. My mother's voice came through the speakers, already talking about Tyler's launch party expenses. I remember gripping the wheel, exhausted, just listening. That's when the truck came out of nowhere. The impact was violent. Glass, metal, silence. Then pain. At the hospital, they told me I had fractured vertebrae. Emergency spinal surgery. High risk of paralysis. I tried calling my parents. No answer. Later I saw why. Photos of them smiling at Tyler's launch party. Champagne. Lights. Celebration. While I lay in a hospital bed, wondering if I would ever walk again, they were toasting his success. And I still wasn't the priority. The night before my surgery, I lay in a hospital bed staring at the ceiling, trying not to think about the word paralysis. My phone kept lighting up. It was my mother. I answered. She didn't ask how I was. She asked if I could increase the credit limit on the card because Tyler wanted a more exclusive dinner for his investors after the launch. I remember laughing once. Not because it was funny, because it was absurd. I'm having spinal surgery tomorrow, I said. A pause. Then she replied, this is important too, Naomi. Don't make everything about you. That was the moment I understood something irreversible. I could be broken, and still be useful to them. After that call, I didn't cry anymore. Something inside me just went quiet. A nurse came in and asked if someone would stay with me before surgery. I said yes, at first, then corrected myself. No. I'm alone. That word didn't hurt the way it should have. It just felt true. Later, I opened my phone and saw videos from Tyler's launch party. My parents smiling. Glasses raised. My brother center stage like he had built his success alone. I watched it all without blinking. Then I turned the screen off. For the first time in my life, I didn't ask why they weren't there. I asked something else. What if I stopped being there for them? While I waited for surgery, I watched their world continue without even slowing down for me. Tyler was everywhere online. Photos, interviews, captions about family support and hard work. My parents stood beside him like proud architects of his success. No mention of me. Not even once. A coworker sent flowers to my hospital room with a note, "We're with you." I stared at it longer than I expected. Because that was the first time someone had acknowledged I was even missing. On the live stream, Tyler raised a glass and said, "To the people who believed in me from the start." I almost laughed again. Because I knew the truth now. I was never part of his start. I was just the funding behind it. After surgery, everything hurt, but the silence hurt more. While I recovered, I stopped reacting. I just observed. I watched how my mother only called when Tyler needed something. I noticed how my father justified every expense like it was an investment in the future. And I paid attention to Tyler's patterns, when he asked for money, how he framed urgency, how he never said thank you without immediately following it with another request. It wasn't random. It was a system. And I had been feeding it my whole life. One night, I wrote everything down, payments, dates, excuses, lies wrapped in family language. For the first time, I wasn't inside the pattern anymore. I was studying it. I didn't confront them. I didn't argue. I didn't warn anyone. I simply stopped one thing, automatic support. The first time Tyler's request came in after my decision, I read it twice. Then I didn't respond. Minutes later, my mother called instead. "Naomi, this is urgent," she said, like urgency was my responsibility. I listened, but I didn't act. That night, I checked my accounts again. Every transfer I had made over the years was still there in memory, tuition, rent, launches, dreams I never built for myself. Then I did something small, almost invisible. I changed every password, every access, every recovery email. No announcement. No explanation. Just distance being built, quietly. It didn't take long before they noticed. My mother called 5 times in one day. Tyler sent messages that started polite, then turned impatient. My father left a voicemail saying I was punishing the family over emotions. I said nothing. But silence, I learned, makes people reveal themselves faster than arguments ever do. The more I didn't respond, the more desperate they became. Requests turned into demands. Demands turned into guilt. "You're destroying your brother's momentum," my mother said during one call I finally answered. I listened, then hung up without replying. For the first time, I wasn't reacting to them. I was letting them reveal exactly who they were without my help. Cutting them off wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. I left the family group chat. I blocked Tyler. I stopped answering my mother's calls after she said I was betraying my role. But the hardest part wasn't the blocking. It was the guilt that followed it. I sat alone in my apartment, recovering slowly from surgery, staring at a life I had funded but never lived. Some days I almost unblocked them. Almost. Instead, I went back to my notes. Every transaction. Every lie disguised as love. Letting go meant accepting something painful. They wouldn't come back as family. They would come back as users who lost access. I didn't rush anything. I waited until every pattern became predictable. Tyler's messages always returned when money ran out. My mother always escalated guilt when control slipped. My father always softened the language to sound reasonable while demanding the same thing. So I prepared quietly. Every transfer record. Every payment confirmation. Every message where they admitted what they expected from me. I compiled it all into one file. Not to attack them. To show the truth without emotion attached to it. Then I sent it, only to myself, my lawyer, and one other email I had never used before. A backup. Because I knew the moment they realized access was gone, they would try to rewrite the story. And I wanted proof before they did. It happened on a Sunday. My mother showed up at my apartment with my father and Tyler behind her. No warning. No respect for boundaries. Just urgency. "You've gone too far," she said immediately. "Look what you've done to your brother." Tyler tried to speak, but I raised my hand. For the first time, I spoke without shaking. I opened my laptop and played everything. Bank transfers. Screenshots. Messages. My mother asking for money during my surgery. My father justifying it. Tyler admitting I was easier to fund than investors. Silence filled the room. Tyler's face changed first. Then my father looked away. My mother tried to speak, but nothing came out that could fix it. They finally saw it. Not my pain. But their pattern. And there was no version of the story left where I was wrong. After I showed them everything, no one spoke for a long time. Not because they understood, but because there was nothing left to argue with. My mother finally broke the silence first. "You're tearing this family apart." And for the first time, I didn't feel anything. "No," I said calmly. "I'm just stepping out of it." Tyler tried one last time, his voice smaller now, stripped of confidence. "I didn't know it hurt you this much." That was the closest thing to an apology I ever got. And even that wasn't about me. It was about consequences finally reaching him. My father kept insisting it was all a misunderstanding. But the bank records didn't misunderstand. Neither did the messages. Neither did the years. I told them clearly, no more money. No more access. No more explanations. Then I closed the door. What followed wasn't dramatic revenge. It was distance. I recovered fully from my surgery. Slowly, painfully, I rebuilt my body first, then my life. I didn't go back to the company I once carried. I was promoted, eventually becoming a director, but I left not long after. Not because I failed there, but because I finally understood I didn't want to build other people's dreams anymore. I started writing. At first, it was just fragments. Then stories. Then one book that sounded too much like my own life for me to ignore it. I didn't plan for it to succeed. But it did. It became a bestseller. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was true. People saw themselves in it, the invisible daughters, the sons who never carried consequences, the families that called exploitation love. With time, I stopped working for companies entirely and wrote full-time. I bought a quiet house. Simple. Mine. No shared ownership with guilt. And my aunt, my real family, moved in next door. She had been there all along, even when I didn't know it. The one who paid my tuition quietly. The one who sent help when no one else did. The one my parents cut off because she refused to accept their version of me. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She just stayed. As for Tyler, his app collapsed within 2 years. Investors pulled out. Debts followed. He kept trying to reach me through new numbers, new emails, new excuses. I never answered. Not once. My mother's calls eventually changed tone. Less demands. More fatigue. Then silence for long stretches. I heard through relatives that their finances fell apart after Tyler's failure. The future they invested everything in didn't return anything. Years later, I got the call. My mother had terminal cancer. My father asked me to come back. Just to say goodbye, he said. I didn't feel anger anymore. Just clarity. So I sent flowers. Not because I forgave them, but because I finally understood the difference between duty and love. I didn't go because I had already spent 29 years showing up for people who never chose me. And for the first time in my life, I chose myself instead. And that was the moment I realized something I wish I had known sooner. I didn't lose my family. I stopped abandoning myself for them. And I was finally free. If this story hit something real inside you, don't just scroll past it. Like the video so more people who've been through silent betrayal can find it too. Subscribe to the channel if you want more stories about quiet strength, revenge without noise, and people who finally choose themselves. And I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved just to save yourself?